I'm Dr. Ashley,
And this is Sherry.
and this is From Her Point of View. Whose question is it? Whose turn is it?
Sarah.
Sarah. You're
Hey.
a silent partner here.
I am. I don't like talking over people, so I'm like waiting, and then I wait too long.
I'm like that on my Zoom meetings at work. I don't want to talk over people, and then I end up missing getting in there.
Yeah.
All right, what you want? You want a question or you want a truth?
I'd want a question, but I feel like we haven't done any truth, so I should switch it up by doing a truth.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not too bad.
I constantly have to remind myself that setting boundaries is not selfish. Standing up for my truth is not selfish. Pride is different from my truth, and it's easy for people to gaslight you into thinking that one is acting as the other. Holding your ground can be lonely, but it clears space for what does vibe with you on a deeper level.
That's true.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That's a lot. Yeah, I think setting boundaries is very hard to learn how to do. It feels like rejection. It feels like you're rejecting the other person. And if you're like me, where I just want everyone to feel happy and loved, if I feel like I'm setting a boundary, I feel like I'm rejecting them, and then I feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my truth, so I don't really know how to respond to that.
But it's just a spark conversation. You don't really have to respond, but I hear you. And the thing that really stands out to me is like, why do we always put everybody before ourselves?
Yeah, I'm a healer. It's what I do.
Right.
I teach yoga. I'm a new massage therapist. So like my goal is to heal people. And people always come to me that need something. Mm-hmm. So I'm always giving and giving and giving, and I'm never getting anything in return. And it's really hard to set that boundary because I feel like, oh, that's my purpose. I'm supposed to be giving to you. So how am I going to tell you, no, I don't have time to talk to you right now, or no, I can't help you with this issue right now. It's difficult to set the boundary. I don't know how pride factors into that. I don't think I have much of that. But yeah, it's hard when you feel like you're a nurturing person, you're a giving person, to set the boundary. And I don't think I've learned how to do that yet. That's something I'm working on.
Something I'm like, I realize that I'm good with setting boundaries with certain people easier than like others. And that's something I'm trying to navigate too, like that part. Cause it's like, why am I so quick to tell my mom I don't like that? And then like, but my dad, I'm more hesitant, you know? But I think what I really sit and think about that question, I think I know why. It's because I didn't speak up a long time with my mom. So like now that I've finally starting to get the voice and the power or feel the power to do so, I'm doing it left and right. But with others, it just takes a little longer. It's like a journey for each person.
Mm-hmm. I guess boundary setting would be different depending on who the person is. Just like you said, like maybe easier to set boundaries with this person rather than that person. Like Atara, when you're talking about your clients, they're paying you to give them something. So, okay, you're going to give them something. But then how do you then turn it off when it's time to go and transition into an intimate relationship or with your child, or, you know what I mean? Setting boundaries with a family member. When you're giving every day, all day long, how do you switch the gears?
Right. And I feel like I should give to my son and I should give to my family. But I end up, you get DMs from people asking yoga advice or asking for advice on how to heal from an injury. And I'm like responding to these people that aren't, they aren't people that deserve, it's not that they don't deserve it, but they're not my child. Like, I don't owe you an explanation. I don't owe you to break this down to you, but I do it anyway. Like random people. And that's not healthy. It's not a good.
But I think boundaries is something that we all struggle with in one way or another in different aspects, whether it be with the job, whether it be with our family, our friends, just extending ourselves in business. I think that when it comes to boundaries and what that looks like, we all have issues with that.
I was told so long to like, I was selfish. And so like earlier I said, I'm like trying to like reclaim that and make it more positive. Like I can be selfish and it can be positive for me and not detrimental to you.
Right.
And it just be that. Like, so I'm taking back the power. I'm allowed to be selfish. I got one life. This is it. And I can live my life how I want just because I don't do something or that you like, or you want me to do something that I don't want to do and I'm not going to do. Like, that doesn't make you bad for wanting it from me, but it doesn't make me bad for not wanting to give that to you. You know, it just is what it is.
I think we're socialized as women from the youth up to give. I mean, we're raised that way. We are just kind of guided in that space to be the givers. So when we become adults and we are burnt out and we have given, we don't really know when or how to set the boundary to kind of reclaim our time and space and energy back. And because we've been shown that that's what our role is, that's what we're supposed to be giving all the time. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, and probably heard it from other people. You can't pour from an empty glass. If we're giving all the time, I mean, the quality of what we're giving can even diminish because we haven't replenished. We haven't, built ourselves back up. And I think that's really important. And that's where they're setting those boundaries come in. Like I said before, like, why is it that we feel that everybody is more worthy than us? Why do, I mean, you love your children to death, but are they, I mean, really? And every time I talk about the kids, I get off because I don't say the things that moms are supposed to say, but
well, this is
are they more worthy than us? I mean, we really have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of them. Mm-hmm. And if we've given them everything we've got, what do we have left for us?
Mm-hmm. And if we are just giving to them, they're going to see that and emulate it, like they're going to feel like that's how they want to do. And they're going to give to people and not give to themselves. So you have to set the example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where are we on the boundaries?
Stuck. Okay. We're stuck on boundaries, but we're going to get it together, ladies. Don't worry about it.
All right. We are now shifting gears.
I was trying to shift gears 2 questions.
Okay. So if you have listened to season 3, you know that season 3 is our sexual season. So we're going to talk about some questions and truths that have come up in that arena. Okay. So Perry, if you want to go ahead and do the next question for truth.
Who's that? Jess, you up?
I'm up.
You up? You want a question or you want a truth? All I got is questions, girl.
All you got is questions?
All I got is questions.
You can ask me a question.
Okay. I'm close my eyes, random.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. And I'm just, so there is a list of them. I'm just, whatever my eyes fall on, that's what I'm asking. So the question is, what are the boundaries for flirting? Are there any? So in a relationship, flirting happens, right? But if there's boundaries, what are they?
I think that's hard because it all depends on your insecurities, your partner's insecurities. Because I remember one time I offered my boyfriend's friend something to drink. And later on, he's like, he thought she was flirting. I have hospitality. I don't know. Like, next time I'm going to let that little hangy bar in the back of your throat dry out then, So that's kind of hard. But I would say there doesn't need to be no talking on the phone, like no texting and all that stuff like that if you're not in front of each other. I don't know, because like I said, it's hard. I've been called a flirter because I offered someone something to drink. So I think
can call a flirt for just smiling at somebody and literally just trying to be like, hi, like, and it was like, oh, you're doing too much. Oh, okay.
And then if you don't smile, you have resting bitch face and you look mean or you're stuck up. Like it's pretty hard. I don't know.
So let's define that. Is this flirting with your spouse, or is this flirting outside your spouse or your partner or whatever, or is this flirting outside of the relationship?
Outside of their relationship.
Okay, that makes it a little bit more clear for me.
So from a woman's perspective, for a man, what would you consider too much that he may be doing with another?
Okay. Since social media is big, if a female slides into your DM, don't need to be no more action. Like if they, oh, you're cute, you need to let them know right away. You thank you, but you have a girl. Don't entertain it. Like, oh, you're cute too. Like that's just too much right there. Doing entertaining stuff, responding back and forth. You can take the compliment, but there doesn't need to be any back and forth stuff like that.
Ladies, anybody else? Because y'all know.
I think that's a really broad question for me, because it really depends on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody jumps in somebody's DM and they say, you know, they're flirting with the girl, whatever, but you're not doing anything, like flirting is fun sometimes. So I guess it really depends on the boundaries that you set in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because when you just said something about like people sliding in the DMs, like if somebody responds to a picture that I posted and it's just like you're beautiful or this picture's beautiful, I say thank you. If it's a man or a woman, and that's just that. And my husband's okay with that. Like I make him aware, you know, like, and not every time, because I know that he doesn't care to know every single time, but I also know that he trusts me to not take it any further than accepting a compliment from somebody. And that if it ever got anything other than that, like I would easily just pump the brakes on whatever communication, you know, like I think but other relationships that I've been in, that alone would have pissed them off. It really just depends on who you're with and your trust between each other.
Insecurities.
Mm-hmm. And then defining what is flirting. Because a smile is not really necessarily flirting, but a smile could be flirting. You know, it really all depends. So I think it's all subjective.
Exactly. I feel like flirting could mean so many different things. My personal opinion of like what flirting is, it's like, I'm attracted to you. I want to like tell you that. Like I want to show you that. I want to get something out of this. Like that's what I feel like flirting is. But I don't think telling somebody that they look good is necessarily flirting. It just depends on the context. I definitely feel like it's subjective as well. Because I don't think we all would have the same definition of what flirting is.
Mm-mm.
I think if your partner's attitude is changing towards you, then that's when like the flirting has definitely gone too far. They've allowed it to invade your space.
Yeah.
You know, and like the intents have changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they can openly communicate with you and be like, because I've had situations before where there's like someone that he works with who's obviously like got a small obsession or something, but he'll communicate it with me. And so I'm in the loop on how that connection is going. So I'm not ever like blindsided if we run into her and see her, like I'm not ever blindsided on what their connection is. I feel like if there's any shadiness to the conversations going on, there's intents that are being hidden.
Mm-hmm. That's important. Just understanding the intent behind it and being looped into the situation. Because I think where it falls apart is when there is this backhand situation going on. You don't know what's going on. And especially if you're hiding something, it's usually because it's something you have no business doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that makes a difference.
Yep. The air about you changes. Like even if someone can't pinpoint it, they feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that energy.
Katrina, you're next. Hey, girl.
Hello.
Question time.
You got me I was rinsing out my conditioner too. I was trying to tell y'all.
We was waiting for you.
Oh, cool. Okay.
All right, so the question is, would you be open to a threesome if your partner wanted it? And anybody can answer this.
Yeah, it's not just for you.
Hell to the no. I'm gonna tell you why. Okay. I would say, and it has less to do with him and more to do with me. Maybe like before I met him, like my priorities were different. I was out in these streets. I was for the streets on purpose. But you know, like my priorities changed, and I personally just didn't want to be with a person that wanted that type of exploration, because I no longer wanted that. Yeah, so like I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Do you? Like, even going on with flirting, like I flirt with everybody. Like all my gay friends think I'm gay, and I'd be like, I'm not into it, but because I think we're all beautiful. Like, honestly, I mean, some of us, but I think we're all beautiful and all that. So I completely get the lure of it, but because it's he's who I'm building with, like he literally is my partner. I do not want to take that type of calculated risk and have someone enter into our safe place, because he is my safe place. He's home for me in a lot of regards. But I would say before I met him, absolutely, I would have like no problem, because I just, I feel like that's something, I don't necessarily think that's something I would do in a committed relationship. I think that's something you do for fun, but that's just like my mind, because I know I'm jealous. That's not something that's going to change. Like, I am who I am. I can be cool about it, but I know that I'm a jealous person, and I'm not going to be able to watch you doing that with somebody and not want to slap the shit out of them. So that's just that.
And that's honest.
Yeah.
I agree. Not if you're in a committed relationship. No, you better do like Meg said and get me another wig, and we can pretend like I'm somebody else.
Because there will be nobody else in this bed but me, okay? But there's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of friends who have open relationships, and I'm intrigued by it because, like, I'm selfish. Like, I want you to myself. I don't want to know that someone else is getting what I'm getting. Like, I can't fathom that in a committed relationship. So, so when they tell me about these situations, I'm like, tell me more. Like, I want to know all about it, because I'm living vicariously through you, because I could never. Like, I'm just not built that way.
I feel like the nature at which someone comes at it makes a huge difference too, because some men are just like disgusting, and they're like, hey, would you like have a threesome with them? And it's like, dude, just because of how you present to that, absolutely not. But and there's also some relationships where it's like, okay, let's introduce a threesome because our marriage is failing or our relationship is failing, and maybe that will save it or something. But then there are people who are just, they're curious and they're sure of their relationship, and they know that it's not gonna, invade what they have built together, and then it's just an experience after that. So it's definitely interesting, like depending on the level of communication, what your relationship can handle.
And that's important to know, to understand what it is that your relationship can handle. There's no right or wrong for anybody. Me and Ashley were talking last week, and we were talking about defining the roles of what makes your relationship, because we're all out here defining our relationship based on what somebody else is doing. And that's not always the case. What works for you doesn't always work for me. So knowing what works for me and going with that is just fine.
I'm trying to get to a point where I'm not judging people for their relationships, and like it's something I've been working on, and I think I've been doing pretty well on, like just knowing that everyone has like I'm not against gay marriage, but I've always been super judgy about people that were like swingers, and I've had to get myself to a point where I'm like, if someone's not hurting you, then, and they're not hurting each other, then they should be able to do whatever they want. Like if it's a threesome, or if they're swingers, or if they're with the same sex or multiple sexes or whatever, like as long as they're not hurting someone else, they're not hurting each other, they're not hurting me, then they should be able to do whatever they want. But I definitely couldn't do it because I'm jealous also. But I think it's important to not judge people for what they do.
I could say that I wouldn't, in my space right now, I would say no, just because personally I'm not comfortable with my body or anything right now, just in this state that I'm currently in. So I wouldn't want to bring that in, but I would never say that I would never do it. And I've talked about that with my husband. We've asked, like, I've asked, would you ever be like opposed to it, or would you ever be okay with that? Like if I ever wanted to, or vice versa. And he was just like, we would just really need to talk about it, like really communicate about it and see if that's what we want at that time. So yeah.
And you did what you, I feel like any healthy relationship, right? You shouldn't be dismissive, especially if your partner's like, this is what I need, So that's like extremely healthy. Part of the reason why I know that it's just not for me is, and I think I told Ashley, like, it was the craziest thing. Once I decided to commit, all of a sudden, all these people kept approaching me to be their third in their polyamorous relationships. And I was just like, so honored, because I know it takes so much work. And I'm like, wow, you think I'm that organized and that like selfless? Like I'm not. I thought it was, it was an honor. It was like really amazing to me. But because I was honest with him, I was like, hey babe, like this has been happening to me. How do you feel about this? And he was very like, if that's something that you feel like you want to do, I'm not the man for you. Not because I'm insecure. That's just not the type of relationship I want. And it wasn't dismissive. Like we actually talked about it, like weeks we were talking about why certain things aren't for us. What what do we need? And I think, to be very honest with you, because I told you I was for the streets before I met him on purpose. I think this is the most intimate relationship I've ever been in, but it's the least sex I've ever had. And I think that that's the difference. I've been really wanting intimacy, and all those other times I was just having sex. So yeah, that was the difference for me.
It's a very, very poignant point you just made there, because they are two very separate things. You can have sex without intimacy, and you can have all the intimacy without sex. They don't have to, hold hands and walk into the sunset together.
Lovely.
So,
what did Dr. Janelle say? Intimacy.
Intimacy. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. You said intimacy?
Intimacy. You have to see into me.
Oh, that's
intimacy.
Deep. That's amazing. That really is amazing. Okay. Yeah.
Write that down.
So we ran through the threesomes. We ran through it.
Yeah. No. We said no.
We said
most. To each his
we
own.
all said no.
To each his own. To an extent.
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
You have to get there. You do not have to get there.
No, I don't. And I'll be thinking about it like,
why?
Because it sounds exciting. I don't know.
Sometimes reading a book on it can be even more exciting.
Yeah, I'm like, it sounds exciting, but
there are other ways to get excited.
I have to cut a bitch, okay? It's going down. I couldn't do it. And him too. I have to cut everybody. All right, so question or truth?
Sis.
Yes.
Susie's up.
Oh, so this is simple, and this will be a good question for you, Susie. The question is, what would you do if you want to have sex with your partner, but your partner doesn't want to have sex with you?
I've actually been through this quite a bit in my relationship. We've been together 7 years, which is a really long time, but we've had like crazy levels all over the place. And he, for a long time, was suffering through depression that I didn't really understand the levels of depression that it was at, and he didn't really either. So I thought it was more of me just not being desirable. Turns out it wasn't, but I solved that problem. Like I would just masturbate in front of him. I didn't care.
Here we are. Sorry.
sometimes he had the capacity to give the intimacy back, sometimes not, but either way I still got mine, so it was fine.
Has anyone else ever had that experience?
The question is where you want it and they don't?
Yeah. you want to have sex and your partner does not want to have sex with you.
What do you do in the situation?
Yeah.
Well, if they're saying they don't want to have sex with you, you don't have sex with them. Because they're saying no, so there's no consent.
True.
So you just, like Susie just said, I mean, you either gonna have to work it out or.
So I was listening to the Strawberry Letter today, and that made me think of it. So in the do you know what the Strawberry Letter is? On Steve Harvey. Okay, so Steve Harvey morning show, she has a Strawberry Letter that she reads, and the Strawberry Letter was from don't quote me, I think it was like a 56-year-old and a 60-year-old man, and she went about it saying, we've been together for 2 years, but we lived together for a year. Out of the 2 years, we now live together for a year, and since living together, he never wants to have sex with me because he believes that we shouldn't have sex before marriage. She said, but before moving in together, the first year, they were having sex all the time. And then since moving in together, there's been no sex. And so because he's using that sex before marriage with no ring on her finger, no proposal, she's thinking like, what are we doing? So she's asking, what should I do in this situation? Well, let's just say that Steve Harvey tore her a new one, okay? Because what he said was, you're too damn old to not know what to do. And if you're with this man after 2 years, you've been living together for a year now, and he doesn't want to have sex with you, and that's what you want, but you're honing in on the sex before marriage thing is wrong, you need to exit stage left. So that was good advice, because what are you doing at this age? The man is not into you for one reason or another, and I don't think it's sex before marriage. He's probably full of shit.
Yeah.
But he waited until you start living together. Something happened for him not to be into you no more. And instead of being honest about what that was, he just said, I don't want to do this. But you stay. So what do you do?
I say leave.
Leave.
I don't think it has anything to do with sex before marriage. Like, does he even go to church on Sunday? Like, what? I think he pulled that out his butt.
He said, we need to talk to a marriage counselor. She's like, there's no ring on my finger. What are you talking about? Like,
yeah, so not even engaged.
Smoke up my ass.
So not even engaged.
Not even engaged.
Oh yeah, nah. She needs to leave.
Yeah. So Steve was like, what? Wait, did she really write in? What?
I think it just goes back to like what she needs, you know, if you're not getting what you need for a year and that's something that you think is important, then you're doing a disservice by staying. Yeah. I genuinely feel you're just waiting for something that might not happen. And then you waited 3 years and it's like, okay, well, what the hell? I could have been getting mine and much more, you know, somewhere else. So
he's gonna keep selling her that dream and she's gonna keep buying it.
Especially at that age, she probably feels stuck. She probably feels like she met someone that she really connects with. And now, because they moved in with each other after a year, and she probably felt so connected with him that he bamboozled her. And now you're living together. I don't know if she's living with him or he's living with her, because that changes the dynamic. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you've ever lived with a guy or a guy has lived with you, it changes the terms of the relationship. Okay. So I don't know what that was, but you're living together now. And he's just like, no, you're not getting it.
It could be so many factors, you know, like we don't know if she let herself go within a year. He's older, so it could be, he could be having erectile dysfunction, but he's too embarrassed to say he needs that blue pill. It could be a lot of things.
It boils down to communication, like true, authentic conversation, and really, truly expressing like what's going on outside of this whole marriage thing. Because if that's the case, then why aren't you? Where are we in the steps of possibly getting married? Like, let's talk about that.
Technically, if you want to put it that way, you're not supposed to be shacking up before marriage either.
So he's cool with living together. He just ain't trying to get it on.
And try to use the not being married as the excuse. And that's because of religious reasons or something.
But now you're religious after a whole year. We would get rabbits. And now that I live here, we live together.
You can't pick and choose the parts that you want to abide by. So you either want to abide by this or you don't.
Yeah.
And then she agreed. She's like, well, I agree. He's like, but you can't because you live with the man and y'all was having sex for the first year like it was nothing.
Mm.
So yeah, it was one of those. So what do you do when your spouse doesn't want to? And I don't mean just like a one-off situation. I mean consistently. You're with someone who just is not into you like that. What do you do? And I think a lot of women have this, not a lot, but some.
I mean, no, there may be a lot, because generally you hear the situation that the man wants it all the time and the woman doesn't. And then when it's switched and the woman does and he doesn't, then women are less likely to say, yeah, he don't want to do it. He just don't want to do it. So we don't know about them as much.
Yeah.
I think it's important though, like back to Susie's experience though, like it might not be that he's not into you. It
Right.
might be that he's really struggling within himself, you know, and he can't get himself to that point, unfortunately, to want to please you or even feel pleased because he might be too deep in whatever is going on in his head, you know?
And we also have to think about that stigma that I just mentioned about the men wanting it all the time. They don't want it all the time.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? They just don't. They are human beings too. And not just like robots. They're just like, I'm ready to go all the time. It's just not.
Right.
So you got to think about all the things that are going on with them and then make sure that it's safe for them to say, I don't feel this right now, or I'm not in that space right now, or like Susie was saying, I'm struggling right now. Like I can't do this for myself, let alone for you.
Yeah.
And that
I think there's
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say that just goes back to communication.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's a lot of men who don't find safe spaces for themselves within their groups of men, whoever they connect with, to be able to have like the conversations that we have. And I think that makes a huge difference too, because who do they go to talk about if they are going through erectile dysfunction or, you know, these things? I don't feel like they have as much safe spaces, or they should create them themselves. But
And just as we have that stigma towards them that they want it all the time, they may have that of themselves as well. So they can't go to another male, because the other male will be like, what you mean? You know, what you mean you don't want it? She was throwing it on you, you know? So they have to deal with that stigma as well.
Good stuff.
Are you ready, Kai?
I am.
And you're married, so this is a good question for you. What are some of the things that you do to keep your relationship spicy? Spicy,
I don't know.
exciting.
I think that it's important, like, to practice self-discovery in the relationship. I think, like, and not getting just stagnant and doing the same things over and over again. I don't know. I don't know. More recently, when my bachelorette party, or my bachelorette trip, we started introducing toys to our sex life. So that is spicier than what it was before. Yeah, I don't know. When I'm feeling just bored of our routine, just period, like no matter, not only just sexually, just, you know, I feel like we're too wrapped up in something else and not connecting enough, like in the week or something like that. Like I vocalize it and we come to a plan together, you know, like, all right, how are we going to resolve this then? Like, we need to do this more. We need to cuddle more before bed. And yeah, I don't know. Toys, I would say that's the most spicy so far.
Susie.
So for me, I really had to start telling myself, if I'm needing something, chances are he's needing it too and doesn't know how to express it. So as far as like intimacy and stuff like that, to get things to be spicier, like in the mornings, waking up and instead of like getting up right away, just spending those extra moments of like rubbing his back or playing with his hair, just those small moments throughout the day changes everything. It really does. And it's a minute, it's 30 seconds, you know, and then it turns into whatever if the opportunity is there.
So I'm going to throw this question to Dr. Ashley, because if you all don't know, she's been married for 15 years. So what do you do?
How you know it's spicy?
I said, what do you do
I mean,
to keep it spicy and exciting? Inquiring minds want to know. 15 years is a long
15
time.
years is a long time of marriage, right? And there are ebbs and flows. You're up, sometimes you're down. So, but I think just because I can fully be myself with him, that helps to keep everything pretty, I don't even like the word spicy, like, just keeps everything good because I can fully, and all the different aspects of Ashley that have changed over the past 15 years. Like, he's always accepted them. He's never tried to make me be something else or do something else or say something different or whatever. So I think that's what kind of keeps everything good with us, because I can always just be fully me. And if I want to introduce something, he never shames me about it or says, like, why would you want to do that? Or da-da-da-da-da. And I can, and if he's not with it, he's just like, no, that's not for me. But I mean, I'll do it for you, or da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I don't want you doing anything you don't want to do. So it's just really like open
compromise.
And we never have to fake or try to be something else for the other person.
I like that. Thank you. Anybody else?
I do unhealthy stuff. I would never give the advice, but like, if things are stagnant, I break up with people. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I know that. I mean, it's unhealthy.
It's honest.
That's healthy.
It's honest. Because I've done that too. Like, I've done that before too. So, and as you like to say, quiet as it's kept. 15 years, I've wanted to leave in those 15 years at times. But, the level of commitment there and da-da-da-da-da. So it's not always been like, let's be spicy all the time. But there has been times where you want to cut and run. And had I not had the level of commitment that I have in this marriage, I would have cut and run. I have cut and run. So yeah, I get it.
So, Atara, I want to say that it's not unhealthy, right? Because you know what you want. And I used to be the same way. When it wasn't going my way, I would be like, yeah, I'm not doing this with you. There was no conversation to be had. I'm just not doing this with you anymore. Right. Or the smallest increment of this is not going my way, right? Because it's my way. It's what I want. Then I'm not for the relationship, whatever it may be. I'm with that with friends, guys. No, I'm good. And I always say, they be all right. And my mom used to always say, why do you always say that? I'm just like, they be all right. But in reality, I don't know if you're going to be all right. But I got to find a way to be okay because I can't do this anymore for whatever reason. So it's not unhealthy. It's you knowing what you want and not settling for what's not working for you.
Right. Okay. Good enough.
But I like that because I used to be like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I tried it. The young me just didn't have it to do.
Right.
I think sometimes we should all feel the freedom to be able to just do that. If we're not happy in a situation with somebody, regardless if we were more committed at one point than another, I forget who said it earlier, but I think it was Susie, you still have the power to like leave, in every single situation you have the power to leave. So kudos to you, like, for not sitting around and being unhappy for too long with somebody,
And recognizing, I mean, there are seasons. And sometimes the season is just over. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be a devastating experience. Sometimes it is, but it doesn't have to be. It just, that chapter is closed and it's time for a new one.
Now, do you feel that you always have to give an explanation, or is it okay to just say deuces and what they say now, ghost them or something like that?
The young me would want you to break up with me, right? I was prepared to end this, but I did something so that you would leave me. So then it would never be a means of, if I wanted to come back to you, like I could come back to you, but I can't break up with you and then want you later because I left you. But if you left me and I changed my mind, then I could come back to you if I wanted to. So I would prefer them leave me, but then it just got to a point where I just used to be like, yeah, I'm not, and I would ghost. Number would change, you'd be blocked, whatever the case may be. I'm just not talking to you no more.
I'm big on the ghost because, like you said, I can't do this because I don't need no feedback. It don't got to be a conversation. I just want to be out.
I'm much more mature now. I have more patience now.
And it also depends on what the relationship was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if we spent 5, 6, 7 years together and then it's just like, all right then, I mean,
that's a little harder.
Come on, like
all right, I'm gonna head out.
You know, that's nice,
Right,
but you know, if it was a little something, you would like, all right, I'm done with this. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
You kind of got to give them the respect of being like, this is over and closing it.
Unless you've been having these conversations with this person and they have chosen not to see what is being told, then you just leave. Eventually you're like, well, I've been trying to tell you for months now. So when I pack my bags and I'm out the door, don't ask me why, because I've been telling you months previous, I can't do this. I can't do this. This isn't working. I need. And you're just like, she be all right. So yum be all right out the door. Don't look at me like that.
No, I mean, you were trying to tell me. You don't try to tell people something. This is what I'm telling you. I'm not trying to tell you this. This is what I'm telling you. Now repeat it back to me so that I know that you understand what I'm saying to you.
Oh, she went psychology on you. What I'm hearing you say is
meanwhile, a lot of us don't, we be so in a heat of the moment, we're not communicating that way. Although that's the most effective way to communicate. We're not doing it that way.
Yeah.
What I said was, and then what I said went in one ear and out the other. And then 2 weeks from now, I'm like, did you not hear me? And they're like, wait, what? I don't know what you're talking about. That's being spoiled though.
Let's do one last one and we'll wrap it up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a question or a truth?
Here's a truth. I was molested by my cousins, mostly just heavy petting and touching, but my family acts as if nothing happened. It actually disgusts me. It makes it difficult to have relationships with their children.
With whose children? Oh, I guess
the cousins that molested you as children. When you were children, you had cousins that molested you while you guys were children. You're having a hard time having relationships with their children, like with their family, with that family. That's how I received that truth.
Yeah.
So I guess that's really just the molestation itself and how that carries over into the family relationship.
I feel like it's like it would be mixed emotions because a part of me would probably think like, does that happen to their children? And then naturally a part of me, even though they had nothing to do with it, might feel anger towards them. Like, and if I had kids, maybe I wouldn't want them near my kids because it's like, you know, it's a bunch of mixed emotions right there.
Yeah, I agree with that because you would feel like maybe what they did to you was imposed upon their children, and then maybe their children may do that to your children. Like, it's the culture of things.
The thing that really stood out to me in that truth was the fact that the family acts as if nothing happened. So if they know and they've acted as if nothing happened and we're all just sitting around the dinner table busting it up like nothing has ever happened, and I'm just supposed to sweep this under the rug. And that's something that happens generationally, especially with molestation and incest in families, where the individual, the victim, is just subjected to being around the perpetrator over and over again because the family sort of protects them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it sounds like protects them and also downplays it, because just because it wasn't no penetration or anything like that, it's still molestation with the touching and things like that. So maybe the family's looking at it like that, like they didn't actually penetrate or something like that. But even still, if that person felt uncomfortable, then something needs to be done about it. It's not normal. It's not normal at all. So don't downplay it as if it was normal.
I think you have every right to not want to have a relationship with their children. And that's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but let's be real. Like, you can't, I also understand the caring about their safety because you would have to wonder, but it's not your responsibility to be in anybody's life. I just think that is that cut and dry. So like, if you need to protect your energy by not putting yourself around certain family members, and unfortunately you're not able to have relationships with people that you would want to, but you can't because of a certain situation, then I mean, you're still doing what's best for you, and that's the best that you could do, especially if your family is not validating your experience and you don't feel safe around them. So there's no need to subject yourself to that.
I totally agree. I think people get hung up on that word family. Just because they have your blood does not mean that they have your best interest. Sometimes you can find a better family member from one of your friends or something like that. Like, just because they have the same blood as you does not mean anything. And it definitely doesn't mean that they should be able to get away with what they got away with.
And I feel like if you're in a situation with family where you feel like you're being dismissed, your feelings are being dismissed, your emotions are being dismissed, then I personally would find ways to remove myself from that situation. Like you said, yeah, this is family by blood, but doesn't mean that I have to be around you guys.
Right, exactly.
I definitely have felt dismissed by like many family members and through many experiences in similar situation, that it's nobody acts like it happened type stuff. And it's hard because you're left to heal alone and try to find the tools that you were never given in your toolbox by anybody else, and trying to make peace with what happened. And still it's hard because then you throw the family word in and you're expected to have connection with family even though they're dismissive, and it's like, no, I don't have to. And if I continue to like, I could, it would, and it makes you it makes the victim the villain. And I think that's the weird part about it. It makes you the villain by like setting your boundaries and taking yourself away from it, but be that.
Yeah.
And not only does it make you the villain, it re-victimizes you.
Yeah.
You already had to go through as a child unprotected, and now you're sitting at this table as an adult, unsupported, unprotected again. It just re-victimizes you again.
Well, and it's an entire family supporting the karmic cycle repeating.
And it is cyclical. This stuff happens over and over again.
Yeah.
Usually abused people abuse others. Yeah. They can abuse other people. It happens, not usually, but it happens. And when you create an environment where this stuff is let slide, there's no repercussion. Why would you stop?
Well, and if they don't respect you for speaking your truth on what happened to you, they're not going to respect you. And so why would you waste your time around that?
Yeah.
So when you weren't in a position to protect yourself as a child, as an adult, it's still hard, but you do have a bit more power in that you can remove yourself from the situation. You don't have to sit there.
And then if family starts asking like why you're not showing up at events, be honest. You're not comfortable. It's not a safe space, and you don't have to be there.
Let them sit with that discomfort when you tell them that, because you've had to sit with the discomfort for a lot longer. Like it is what it is.
So I wanted to share that is my truth. I find like I'm taking back my power in sharing that. So I really appreciate you guys validating, because I have had to like re-heal over and over again, because I love family, and I want to be there, but I found myself, as I've tried to heal and calling like the pains that I've had what they are, like identifying them, that I realized that I pressed a lot of stuff down, and I would lash out at my partner, because unfortunately I still had to really unpack good touch, bad touch. If he was too aggressive, or it would completely take me back to being 7-8 years old. I would completely just shrink. So it just, I really appreciate you guys saying yes, like, okay, yeah, it's family, whatever, but you should be able to do what you need to do for yourself regardless. And I needed to hear that, because sometimes, you know, you can be on an island by yourself and there really isn't anyone I can tell outside of a therapist, because I can't trust that my family will even receive it, because I feel like they're like, you still going through that? Gosh, like, what is that? You know, I feel like that's how they would receive it. Because my family, they don't like to go through healing. They like to get over it. And generationally, my sister and I, we are on the island by ourselves. We both were molested. So it's just like, we're on the outside looking in at all of our family traumas, like whether it be molestation or just like abuse or alcoholism or whatever. And we are like, you do not have to stay that way. How can we heal? But no one else is in that space. They'd rather just be like, well, this is how we are. And this is what it is. And as long as you never say it, it doesn't exist. So, yeah, this has been healing for me. So I appreciate you guys responding, because I'm sure it was very uncomfortable. Like, you know,
thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, seriously, because yeah, I've dealt with similar, and I think what you said something regarding you're still going through that. Like, I was straight up told by my mom, like, I thought you were over it, because it happened so long ago. And it's like, no, this is still very much affecting me.
What did you say? What did you?
There's been, and sorry, this topic triggers me, but not to a point where I don't want to talk about it. It's about, I want to talk. I think it should be talked about more, because it's something that I think you probably live with to a lot. You know what I mean? Every single day that something makes you think of that, and same here. But I have gone through like spurts where I just don't want to talk to my mom because of things that she allowed her husband to do. And when it was years of me not saying anything, because I wanted my mom to be happy. And when I finally realized, I was always uncomfortable, and I felt comfort talking to my best friend about it. And how she even found out was, my best friend was going through therapy, and my best friend felt like her best friend was not safe, and she wanted to tell her therapist, and that's how it all got, exposed to everybody. And even then, like, enough just wasn't done. And it got to a point where it was like my mom asking, like, is it okay if he's here when you come over? Because I didn't live with my mom. Is it okay? Like, asking a child, like, over and over again, like, is it okay? Like, just waiting for you to be okay with him being re-entered into the situation, even though all of the harm, and not thinking about my safety. So yeah, like, I've lived with that for a long time, and it just started to come out in my marriage, where, like, sexually, like, I have to be very comfortable to have sex, like, within myself. Like, I can't just put myself there. And when that stuff is heavy on my mind, it's hard for me to get there. And it was getting to that point a lot. And I always remove myself from my mom when those periods come of me, like, struggling there. And, I'm the villain because that's your mom. You only get one mom, but no, you got to do what's best for you. But I think the last conversation we had, I basically said, like, I need you to know, like, to have you in my life, I'm going to be setting boundaries. And that goes back to what I said earlier, like, it's easier for me to set boundaries with my mom, because it's like, I'm not taking no more bullshit. I'm not. And so you got the wrong one if you think, like, now at this stage of my life, I'm going to, but, setting boundaries there. But last time I took myself away from her, she basically was like, I didn't know it still bothered you. Like, it was so long ago type stuff. And it's like, yeah.
No, what do you think feels worse? Do you think sweeping under the rug is worse, or no reaction? Because, like, my mom went through a similar thing, and she just recently told my grandmother about it. And she doesn't like the fact that my grandmother really didn't have a reaction. And I feel for her too, because it's like, why aren't you reacting? But then it's like, what if I get the wrong reaction? Like, sweep under the rug. So, like, which is worse for you?
I think personally, I feel like those are two of the same thing. Like, sweeping under the rug and not having really a reaction. Like, I feel like that's what it is. Not acknowledging. You can say, okay, I understand. I can understand what happened to you, or same thing happened to me is what I was told. And it's like, okay, even more reason for you to want to foster a safe space.
Yeah, break that chain.
People, you know,
Legit the same thing. Legit, like everything you're saying is the exact same thing. Like my mom and so my aunt, her sons are the ones that molested me, my sister, and she was molested by her father to the point where she got pregnant by her father. Okay, my mother has been raped like twice, and she says like she was walking in the park. Okay, like yeah, that happened to me, and it's so crazy how they normalize abuse.
Yeah.
Like they just normalized it, and it's scary. Like I can't even wrap my. I know. I don't hold it against them because I know that it was, they were protecting themselves, and you compartmentalize it and you put it in a way where you can just keep keeping on. But I don't want to just keep keeping on. I know that there's more life for me, and so in me healing and wanting to heal, I've had to distance myself and speak my truth in spaces like this, so that way I can feel validation for being like I can choose self and still love my family. You know,
Yeah.
so
Exactly. Exactly that. And yeah.
Somebody mentioned earlier in the conversation, and I did write it down, that there is no time limit on healing. So anytime someone tells you like, hey, you're still going through that, or hey, you haven't gotten over that, like, no, this could be for the next 50 years of my life. Like I probably relived this way more than you can even imagine. So don't tell me like, hey, you're not over that yet. No, I'm not over that. And because you can't respect that I'm not over this, I am over you. Like you just have to separate yourself from the people who don't respect the space that you're in.
Yeah, I think like I said, like it could be the littlest thing that you wouldn't even expect to trigger, like your memory of that one little thing. And like scientifically, your smell that's connected to your memory. So like I can always remember as a little kid, like there's a certain type of soap that just reminds me of school soap, you know? So any little thing, you can't tell me I got to get over it, because it could be 10 years and then I just see one thing or smell one thing, and it can take you back to that one moment that it happened. So you can't put a time limit on healing.
And there's the healing process, but there's also the fact that when something like that happens to you, it changes who you are at that moment. Or those repeated moments, it changes who you are. And I don't even know if healing necessarily is the word that I'm looking for, but that it's not necessarily something that you ever get over. It's something that you learn to live with and live through, and you heal in the process. But I don't feel like it's something that you ever get over.
Yeah,
it grows with you, and you choose moving forward how that affects you. Like Dr. Janelle said, you choose as you grow how that plays a part in your life.
Yeah, and how you going to use it. Like they always say, knowledge is power. I believe that, but I also believe that your real power comes from the wisdom. Okay, you have the knowledge. What are you going to do with it? Okay, you have the knowledge that, oh, this happened to my mom. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you going to just let it slide like your mom did? Or are you going to break chains so it doesn't happen to your kids?
I'm definitely breaking that cycle when that time comes. Like safety, like I think we talked about earlier, you know, just checking in with your kids. Do you feel safe? Like if you're introducing anybody new, like, do you feel safe? Or even just asking your children, do they feel safe? And giving them the space to really effectively communicate that with you, and pay attention. Like just pay attention.
Yeah.
And teaching them about body autonomy. Like your uncle says, come over here and give me a hug. You don't have to hug him. You do not have to hug him. You do not have to sit on his lap. You don't owe him the contact with your body. That is your body. You can say no. And I've seen that a lot with parents be like, go give so-and-so a hug, or go do it. I don't want to. I don't want to. And then it comes off sometimes, like in some families, it's like, oh, that's your child disrespectful. Oh, they don't know how to act, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah,
for me anyway, he doesn't want to hug you. She doesn't want to do this. So they're not doing it.
Yeah. End of story. A lot of people take that away from kids.
Oh yeah. And that travels right on into adulthood. It says, I guess I owe it to him. I guess I have to do this. because they didn't have any control over their body as a child.
Right.
Yeah, I think like Katrina said, you got to know the good touch and the bad touch. Because if you're in the bad way, if you're touching the bad way, then when you're an adult, that, like she said, it kind of, if you touch her a certain way, then it's like taking her back to that way. So then you need to talk to your kids about that as well. And I would say, make sure to know the right words. Don't tell your daughter she got a cookie and then somebody going in the cookie jar. Like, no, it's a vagina.
Correct. All of that. So my sister is like raising my niece with consent. She's 2. Okay, by the way, she just turned 2. Now, it's hurtful for me, but I completely understand it. My niece just gave me a hug through her own volition for the first time, April 23rd. That was her birthday. Because my sister feels so strongly about my niece being able to choose for herself who she wants to touch her or not. It's hurtful for me, don't get me wrong, but I get it completely because we didn't have that. And we absolutely had the drunk uncles where we had to give them a hug and we were like, no, like, I don't know, ew. Like, even my boyfriend, like we both drink, but if he drinks without me, I automatically think of that. I'm like, oh, you drank, where'd you go? Because I automatically think of just that. Like, so I remember smelling alcohol, feeling like I had to give them a hug. Like, I just didn't like any of those things. So it's just very interesting, like, what we're saying, because it all resonates with me.
Thank y'all for the conversation.
Thank you for being transparent. That's what we need through these conversations. I think that we're all pulling tidbits out from one another in regards to the situation. And hopefully, Katrina and Kai, that helps you to know. Kai seems like she's on it. Katrina, you seem like you're on it. And so stay on that path of growing and being the best person that you can be despite what happened to you.
Thank you. Very many.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Genuinely.
I think this is a good place for us to conclude our session this evening.
That's a heavy ending.
It was a really heavy ending, but I want to thank you all for really being open and having this conversation with us. I love these circles because just women connecting with other women and having a conversation and knowing that you're not by yourself. And while you're ruminating and you're thinking about all these things, you don't have to think about them alone because there are other people that are going through the same thing that you're going through and are willing to help you and listen to you. Like my circle, willing to pour into me when I need it so much, even when I'm not ready to receive it. I really, really appreciate it. And I thank you all for being here so much. You just have no idea.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
You've been listening to From Her Point of View, the show curated specifically for women by women, covering a wide range of topics. Though this is From Her Point of View, we want your point of view too. Become a part of the show. Questions, comments, and feedback are welcome through Instagram and Facebook, where we post regularly. Email us at fromherpointofviewllc@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail at 443-507-8032. Tune in weekly and please share with your family and friends as we can be found on your favorite platforms: Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Thank you for listening to From Her Point of View.